G'day everyone, welcome to this week's video. This morning I've come down to the Bay Area and I'm right beside a really busy road here this morning. We've got some nice high cloud on the horizon. I want to shoot a sunrise here at the Oyster Shed beside the bay here. This old oyster shed's probably been here for between 60 to 80 years and they've been harvesting oysters here on the bay. So I thought I'd like to come down and try and get a shot of the shed. We've got a really nice old jetty leading out, the old punt in the foreground, and then the actual oyster shed right out on the horizon. I'm going to move around in the darkness as I always do, try and set up some compositions, and then maybe I'll try and fire off some long exposures in the pre-dawn light, and then I'll take a couple of exposures as the sun rises. I'm just alternating my shots this morning between horizontal and vertical. We've lost that little bit of colour, but shortly it's going to light up as we come towards sunrise. But nonetheless, a beautiful morning, some nice high cloud on the horizon. I actually shot an image here in 2018, probably one of my favourite panoramas of all time. I got a beautiful pink and pastel sky here one morning, so I'll show you that image now. Because I've actually got the punt in the foreground nice and close to the camera, probably only about 4 meters away, I'm actually focus stacking these images. I'm taking a couple of shots. I'm taking one for the foreground, one about halfway along the jetty, and then I'm taking another shot of the actual shed themselves. I'll blend them together later on in Photoshop so I can actually maintain that sharp focus all the way through each image. We've just lost that little bit of colour as we're coming towards sunrise, and this is quite normal, but I'm fully expecting this really high cloud on the horizon to light up as we come towards sunrise. I've got my compositions set. I'm happy with those. It's a nice still morning here this morning, so we should get some really nice reflections across the lake in front of me. Got some really nice colour on the horizon now, and I'm just shooting some 30-second exposures with a 6-stop filter in, and yeah, just hoping that we get that little bit more colour lighting up. But exposures are coming out really nice at the moment. We've got some really nice colour on the horizon, and I'm just going to continue to shoot these while I can. I think I'm probably going to go for about a 16:9 format with these ones. Colours starting to light up right down towards behind me, towards Woy Woy itself, and then right back across the bay towards Gosford. So it's got potential to light up even further as we come towards sunrise. So I might move around now and look for another composition.
Standing on the shoreline, I was reminded of a beautiful pastel sunrise 1 year earlier that I'd shared with other photographers.
Really lovely light across the bay here now, just absolutely beautiful. Some soft mist just in the horizon there, and just quite a panorama and a number of other different compositions. But what a great morning to be out, just absolutely beautiful here on the Brisbane water at Woy Woy. I've actually just come up now. I'm looking straight out at the oyster shed at the moment, and I'm just firing 13-second exposures. I'm at about f11 at ISO 50, and back towards Gosford at the moment. We're starting to get that light on the horizon really lighting back up that way as well. Some really nice reflections, and I think these will work really well as long exposures this morning. It looks like I've got an audience that's arrived behind me. All the corellas are coming in, catching that morning light. Just a beautiful morning here by the bay. As with all my exposures this morning, I'm just checking my histogram, watching that I'm not clipping any of the highlights. I'm just moving my shutter speed across until my histogram moves across to the right hand side, trying to get the exposure as good as I possibly can. So it's going to make it a lot easier once I get back into post-processing to process these images. Just working through my focus stacking process at the moment, and as you can see, we're starting to get a little bit of harsher light now on the horizon. A lot of that early morning colours. I'm going to try and get a shot, maybe a bit of a starburst behind the Oyster Shed here, and then we'll compare some of those images later on together in post-processing. I've changed my composition. I'm going to stay on this now, looking straight on at the Oyster Shed. A lot of that nice coloured cloud that we had in the early morning is starting to disappear down to the south there, so I'm going to stay with this one. I've got the actual old punt in the foreground here, and then the old jetty leading all the way out. The jetty only goes out about half the way at the moment. It was lost in some storms a couple of years ago, so I believe the way they access the Oyster Shed at the moment is they take the punt out. What I like about this shot is I've actually got three elements in it, and I've got the foreground, I've got the midground with the jetty, and then I've got the shed on the horizon, and it just really completes the image really well, along with the headland and the land on the far side of the bay there. It really balances the image, and that's something to look for when you're actually taking a lot of your images. One of the big mistakes I actually used to make was going down to the ocean, taking a shot, having some foreground and midground, but nothing out in the actual ocean itself other than perhaps the sunrise. I always try and make sure I get those three elements in the shot as the foreground, midground and background. It gives something to lead the viewer's eye through the shot. It's also really good for storytelling in your images. Of obviously using the punt, the jetty and the shed itself, it tells a story of how these oysters are collected each day and the type of process that these guys go through. So the sun's just about to hit that headland on the far side, and I think this is when I'm going to get some nice glow behind the shed itself. So I'm going to try and capture a bit of a starburst. Nothing too dramatic, but just something to try and complement this image, and then so I can compare it later on with my long exposures that I took in the pre-dawn light. Well, welcome back everybody. I've come back down here this morning to try and shoot a long exposure sunrise here again. We've got a bit of dark cloud on the horizon. I'm hoping it'll light up because there's some nice wispy high cloud behind it. And this morning I'm choosing the telephoto. I'm just doing some telephoto long exposures, focusing out on just the actual end of the jetty and the shed itself. We had some nice light earlier on which has just faded off, but yeah, I thought I'd really like to just come back here this morning, just try and do one more shoot here and see if I can produce some different results with the telephoto lens. What I really like about shooting long exposures, especially in a location like this one, is you're able to create that ethereal, otherworldly look. You can transform a normal scene where you've got all these static objects in it that are quite still, and then with a little bit of movement in the sky and that little bit of movement on the water with a long exposure, you get some really pleasing results. We've got some beautiful light out on the horizon now, a dead still morning, perfect reflections across the lake. Got some really nice V shapes in these clouds leading towards the actual oyster shed out there. I'm just firing a shot for the distance, a shot for the foreground. I'm riding close to the punt today because the actual tide is a lot further out, but yeah, some really beautiful conditions here. I'm going to keep shooting while I've got this light, and then I'll come back and have a chat to you. I've actually just cut my exposures back to 1/8 of a second at the moment because I really like the texture and colour in the sky. A long exposure is actually just taking some of that texture away, but yeah, some really beautiful light out on the horizon. Just so good to come back and shoot this location under different conditions each time, and each time we get a different result.
That's it for this week's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to allow others to see this video. Let me know in the comments below which image you preferred. Join me again next time for more of my landscape photography adventures.